Hi, welcome to our squat series. This is part 5. So before we went over barbell back squat, not appropriate for everyone to use and not the only squat variation. So we're going to go through a couple here. This one is a supported squat, so really good place to start if you've never squatted before, or if you're going through an injury rehab process, or we've figured out we've got a few sort of issues with our squat that need some help. So the support system we're using is Olympic rings. You can use a TRX, like a suspension trainer, or anything that's particularly stable. We can use door frames, hang on to the inside of those, tables, or anything that's not going to move too much. So if we grab the Olympic rings and we stand far back from them, and they've not got any slack in, so they're nice and tall. From there, using all our coaching cues before, feet somewhere between hip and shoulder width apart, toes turned out, we're going to have a nice tall chest. From there, we're going to pop our hips back and they're going to sink down. And these are just here to support us. So at the bottom position, we can maintain nice tall chest, extended spine. Knees are tracking out over our toes, and we can use this as a support system. So if we're getting quite good for our squat, we can rely sort of less on these, or if we're finding we're quite unstable in that bottom position, we can grab onto those and use them for a bit more stability. So this is going to enable you to sit a little bit further back into your squat, get really comfortable in that bottom position, and aid you with a lot of stability before we can move on to our next progression as well.
Quick tip, just something to be aware of. Quite a lot of the time you'll see people relying on these almost too much, so be careful not to just lean back and squat here, which you will see this quite a bit. This is not what we're after. So our next progression from our supported squat would be a goblet squat. Very, I think, underestimated exercise. I'd still carry on using this with even high-level athletes. It's a really good way to not only learn the squat, but to train it as well. Having a weight out in front of you makes things a little bit tougher. So, you pick the kettlebell up by we call it the horns, literally in this case, so the kind of sides of the kettlebell. We have it just under the chin, so we don't get lazy with it and let it drop. It keeps nice and rigid, and our elbows are tucked in. And also what this means, from a coaching perspective, is as Matt descends into the squat, his elbows come in between his knees, which forces his knees into a good position. Tracking nicely over the toes. Just shows a couple more reps there. And that would be the goblet squat. Anything you want to add?
So one reason why I like utilising a goblet squat is for teaching purposes as well. So this cues in, elbows inside knees, so improves our sort of knees tracking over our toes there. It also is less demanding on thoracic spine, so enables you to sit a little bit taller in terms of your chest rather than having a barbell on your back that's sort of forcing you down that way. So it really ingrains like a nice squatting pattern for us to utilise with that front load there as well. Okay, so if we are stuck at home whilst gyms are closed and we've only got, for example, one kettlebell that we're starting to find quite easy for a goblet squat, for example, how do we make that more difficult? So the first thing you could do, you could add yourself some more sets or more reps in there. But if we're finding we're smashing out loads of sets and reps fairly easily with the weight we've got, how can we make that more difficult? So if we start to look at tempos, so we can play about with those, so we can have a longer eccentric period, which would be the down period in our squat, and we can look at having a pause at the bottom as well. And we can either make the concentrics, the up portion, faster or slower. So if we look at something like a 3 to 1 tempo on this squat, that would be 3 seconds on the way down, 2, 3, 1, 2, hold, and then 1 up to the top. So that would be a really easy way to make this goblet squat much more difficult for yourself, and you can play around with those tempos as you need to. We can also turn that into a split squat, which is I like to start from the floor down. So one knee down on the ground, both knees are in 90 degrees. From that position there, we can choose to load up in a goblet position again. and drive that front foot down into the floor, up to the top. A couple of different ways you can load this as well. You can load it down by your hip, in contralateral, and go from there. So that's the opposite side. We can load it on the same side that the legs work in as well. And these will both be a bit of a progression on from that goblet squat and make it a little bit more difficult for you.